What's going on, everybody? In season 3, the Axiom Planes, I really think that Ines is one of the top 3 descendants to actually go and do the mobbing quests. The other two are going to be Freyna and Bunny, which Bunny's a really good option because she's on the boost path. To be honest, the difference between the electric condense Bunny that I made before season 3 isn't really that much, except for adding a trigger module, but I'll go into that in a later video. Ines's base kit, for anyone that's returning or new to the game. Ines's base kit, I'll go over it. I play it with a Transcendent module exclusively. That doesn't mean that her base kit is bad, it's just different, so I'm not really building into a reactor that I know I won't play a build. Her entire build really does revolve around plasma oscillation, which is her static ability. It gives her a critical hit rate increase of her max MP times 6.5. This means that you basically need to build the build, and then what's ever left in the skill critical hit rate increase that you're missing to get as close to 100% as feasible. You really want to get through like arc tuning and anything else that you might be lacking. Done it on my build to get to 100 basically just barely. And even if you miss a percent or two, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. Anything north of 95 is really acceptable, but I don't know. If I see 99, I'm going to be bad. And then on a skill critical hit on enemies with conductor. Conductor is a status effect. If I activate my one, conductor is the red status on top of his head, and the other status was another ability. Conductor is a status effect, and then whenever you kill an enemy or you trigger a firearm critical hit, getting Dark Current, which is a proc. Dark Current is a damage bubble. The damage formula for Dark Current is a little complicated, and it doesn't really matter anyway, because you're going to try to get your skill critical hit rate to 100%. This means that the damage multiplier in the formula will be 46% or somewhere really close to it. The damage is based off of your max MP multiplied by the damage multiplier, which the damage multiplier is right here. This is going to be around 46%. Times your minimum damage rate through your maximum damage rate. So the minimum damage rate max is 50%. The maximum damage rate is 100%. And it can hit up to 3 monsters. I have no modules on, so the damage will be minimal. Ines is innately designed to inflict the status ailment and then kill the enemies. That chain reaction is the dark current that you get whenever you blow up the enemies. That's why she is one of the best mobbers and in the top 3 for sure. If an enemy is inflicted with conductor, you have a 10% chance to trigger that explosion without killing the enemy. The Secret Garden is a really good option for many reasons for Ines's main weapon, but really you just want to capitalize on the firearm critical hit rate. You can trigger a lot, and sometimes you'll run out of the plasma charge, which is your unique ability. So your only option is to trigger Dark Current through critical hits. Our first ability, Chain Lightning. It is exactly what it sounds like. Chain Lightning, you inflict. Your max bounces are going to be predicated on your range amount. As you can see, it says caster effect range 40% each. This just means if you have 100% range increased onto your person, that you'll get 2 more reaches with your Chain Lightning. So whatever bonus of increase to your divided by 40% will give you the amount of extra enemies your Chain Lightning bounces off of. You can see here I have 92% on mine, so if I had no module on this build, I would get 2 extra bounces. The second ability, Lightning Conductor, deals damage to all of the enemies within a radius and inflicts Conductor on everybody. This is going to be a very good tool in your arsenal to just zap everyone in your way and inflict conductor so that you can spread the damage to nearby enemies. This particular one, it is going to predicate how much more damage the enemies with conductor do. As you can see, it says skill power 190%. The third ability, Discharge. Sith Light. Although this is one of the ones that's going to change with our module. This uses your plasma cost, so if you don't have any plasma, you can't activate the ability. Plasma is the little pink bar down here that you accrue whenever you inflict conductor. This is not predicated on killing enemies. This is predicated on you inflicting conductor. That means if an enemy is already inflicted with conductor, you can no longer gain plasma charge from them. This is a problem innately in Ines, and whenever you're fighting an elite monster, you'll find yourself kind of struggling to acquire plasma charge energy, which, whenever this happens, your only recourse for skill damage is to shoot them as much as possible, hoping to trigger Dark Current, which is why I brought up the Secret Garden earlier. If you have an issue and you're fighting a elite or something with a lot of hit points, your best course is to build the Secret Garden for maximum fire rate and maximum critical hit rate and maximum magazine size and good reload. You actually don't really care too much about the damage on Secret Garden. You just want to inflict Dark Current because your skill build is going to do more damage. If you have Secret Garden and you want to inflict even more damage, I highly recommend building into the Greg's Reversed Fate. This is actually what I do. It has crazy fire rate whenever you build into it. You can hear and see the Dark Current triggers proccing because you're smacking them with critical hits. Then her last ability, Snare Hunter. This is a quintessential part of wiping ads in Ines's build. You can see the procs go off. This creates a Thunder Snare, which is the immediate circle. And then Thunder Coils, or Current Coils, which is the second circle on the outside. Whenever you use the skill, you get a movement speed increase. So there are one of two goals. The first goal is to stack Snare Hunter on top of each other because you get 2 stacks of them so that you can double the damage output of the actual Snare Hunter itself. Alternatively, you can try to maintain uptime 100% of the time with a snare and always have a 50% increase in movement speed. It's up to you how you really want to play, what you really want to do. Spend some time in America. But you can see it only zaps the one in the center. And then the ones on the outside have a different effect. The build itself is going to be Time of the Hunting Hounds. I'll go into the changes. The first one, Floating Lightning. Floating Lightning bounces. Its maximum bounces right now is 5 times. You can increase if you really want to, but I don't really see a purpose in doing this outside of trying to boss with Ines, which is a separate thing, and I don't plan to do that. I just want to do ad clearing with Ines. Whenever you try to boss with Ines, there is innate issues. Really, there are just other options and better ways to boss. To be honest with you, Electric Condense is probably better. But I digress. The 5 times bouncing, it doesn't matter if it's on 1 enemies or 5 enemies. If there is 1 enemy, it will hit that enemy 5 times and bounce between you and the enemy. You got 5 ticks. Or if there's 4 enemies, you hit all the 4 enemies instead. Inflicting Conductor, and enemies inflicted with Conductor receive an additional damage of skill power 38%. The third ability, Snare Acrobatics. The second change, it changes the Sith Lightning into a charge. This costs plasma to use, and you have a minimum movement distance and a maximum movement distance. What I mean by that is you can alter how far you want to jump. You have to kind of be careful with this. This ability can get you killed a lot if you're facing an elite with a shotgun, for instance. I often find myself trying to charge forward, risking it for the biscuit and not getting the biscuit. This happens to me a lot, but it's fun. Then additional damage is skill power times 468%, so it does 468% of your skill power on top of the pierce damage that you go through enemies with, on top of the burst damage that you explode. To maximize the amount of damage out of this particular ability, you want to, 1, make sure they are inflicted with Conductor when you do it, and 2, charge through them, and 3, explode in a way where you explode in the vicinity where your range will damage them. That is how to maximize the damage, but it really doesn't have to come down to that. You can simply just explode. So typically the way you would play, you would start the match, you have no resources. You inflict conductor, and I can use all of my abilities to the cows come home. I get nothing, right? You can see the pulses happen every now and then. That is the only way to do skill damage as Ines while you're bossing. For this, like I said, I use Greg's just because of the insane fire rate, but also I understand Last Dagger because a fully built Last Dagger has 100% crit rate. The only problem with the Last Dagger is that if you don't core your reactor for a handgun, you're not going to get the damage bonus. You have to core your reactor for the handgun, then switch to Last Dagger, then deal with the Last Dagger stuff. I like Greg's, so I used Greg's, and it's still a tactical rifle. That's the reason I did this. Just to let everyone know, Greg's is the only weapon in the game where you can uncap the fire rate. You see 2142. It is in fact 2142. It is overcapped, and it's not a bug. This is intentional because of it being a burst fire rifle. And then the skill damage. You can see the black buff up there, and then the skill damage goes away. Really, you want to try to pulse in between that black debuff on his health bar. And this is the best way to boss, in my opinion, with Ines, although it's complex and it's unnecessary, so I just don't boss with her. But if you find yourself fighting an elite, this is how to get the most damage out of your stuff. If you have no plasma. If you have plasma, just Kylo Ren the enemy with all of your skills. Right. And then this is a recording of a live stream just to showcase the killing potential output of the build itself. You really want to just try to maximize your damage against all of your enemies, and that's why I've chosen the loadout that I have. There are some alterations that you can do with the component sets and arc tuning if you want to, but if you really wanted to, she could just shoot off her fourth ability and sit there while all the enemies die. So I have chosen the Slayer set. This will output the most damage in the build. There is also the Bravery set, which I would call it a second, I guess. A close second, and then the Hunter set after that. But the Bravery set is popular with Ines simply because of the last ability. You have a 20% chance to reduce a random skills cooldown by 1 second each time an enemy is defeated. So basically, for every 5 enemies that you kill, one skill ability loses a second off its cooldown. Usually this is going to be your fourth ability, and we can get the fourth ability's cooldown time to about 12 seconds. So you can imagine that you can just spam your fourth ability if you're using the Bravery sensor. The reason I don't like this is because it's kind of unnecessary because you're already killing everything anyway, and as soon as you get into a fight with an elite, your set does nothing, which is just my personal preference, and I recommend you play what you want because the best build is what you like playing. The Slayer set gives you a 26% increase in skill power. It does some downsides, but 26% more damage in your build is definitely a good thing. Your reactor, you're going to want a skill cooldown regardless, and then in order of most effective second rolls, it is going to be tech, electric. It is going to be skill critical hit damage as the one that does the most, followed by tech, followed by electric power boost ratio. Simply based off of scaling. I do a lot of videos. I'm sure I've explained this many times. You get a 50% trigger rate to increase a stack. This stack maxes out at a 34% increase in damage, which on your stat sheet, you will see it right here. The green buff, and then the skill power. You can see this is 23171, and now it is 28529. This is a direct multiplier of damage So you don't get a lot of these, and that's why the Secret Garden is so good. It is a direct increase of 34% damage into your build. The build itself is, of course, Time of the Hunting Hounds. We want maximum cooldown. The way to achieve maximum cooldown is always going to be Nimble Fingers, MP conversion, a focus on module, in this case, focus on electric, and then a focus on module, again, focus on tech. In builds in general, if you can sacrifice around 6 to 10% of your cooldown for another thing, whether it be utility or what have you. In this case, the tech skill power modifier doesn't do a ton of damage, except on the first ability. This increases the damage of the first ability by around 50%. And then we're building for maximum critical damage output. So we just have front lines emergency measures for critical damage rate and hit, and then a skill concentration. There's another module, skill insight. We don't need it because we're going to be getting close enough to 100% skill rate anyway. And then I wanted a little bit skill effect range. If you just want damage, you can take this off, but this gives you really consistent runs, so I recommend having it on. And then, as of course, always, at least one HP mod. Your party members will thank you. Then we have the last one, Dangerous Ambush. Dangerous Ambush, if you're in solo play, does not work unless the enemy is in a state where it can't target anything. If you're playing in pubs, this is very good. If you're playing in parties, this is very good. I personally don't like solo play. I do find that in solo play, using her third ability often gets me killed. So in order to do more damage output with her third ability on those elites and those tankier bosses, I recommend having more hit points or more survivability somehow. I choose HP amplification because I don't want like 5 different builds to satisfy niche scenarios. And then Power Beyond. It is not bugged. It is actually working to intentionally give you a power increase regardless of your build. As you can see at the top, it says basic info. This means you don't need anything to proc it. The basic info is just a basic perk. This one right here increases my skill power increase ratio by 12%. This is added on to the Slayer set, and you can see it right here in this 0.381. So that is 12% on top of the 26%, giving me around a 10% increase in damage because of scaling. This Power Beyond is going to be on a lot of skill descendants. It is what it is. Unfortunately, you will not be able to access any of the other ability in the module, so it doesn't matter in this case. But I do prefer a Dangerous Ambush because it gives me more damage, and I play in pubs a lot. As far as the arc tuning tree, this is really what you're going to want if you're copying the rest of the build. Now, the reason this is specifically what you want up here is because we need more MP to get to our critical hit rate of 100% goal. Right here, we are at 100%. If I take off one of the modules, I'm not at 100% anymore. So if you change anything in the arc tree, just know that if you don't get to the MP at the top, you will be losing critical hit rate, which is very important for the build. Then we have, of course, the skill critical hit damage, the skill critical hit rate. The entire tree is built almost all for damage and cooldown. The cooldown is very important. You're going to want that module. And then up here we have electrocution vulnerability. While the enemies are electrocuted, they take extra damage. If you're wondering, 496,000 if they're electrocuted, it definitely counts towards electrocution. So I spent scissors just to prove a point. The last thing on all of your units for your Slayer components, I highly recommend putting HP on the core rolls. You'll see blue here and then orange here. It doesn't matter that much on 3% of an HP modifier. I like my resources. On the power unit, you definitely want MP recovery out of combat, and you definitely want HP. On the sensor unit, you definitely want MP recovery in combat, and you definitely want maximum MP. The fridge unit, or the Slayer memory, it has an MP recovery modifier gain. This will help you, but it's not absolutely required. You can slot what you want here. I recommend defense and MP recovery modifier. I put on firearm proficiency gain modifier because I can't stop leveling my weapons. On the Slayer processor, I always put toxin resistance and max shield, mostly because all of the rules on the processor are somewhat generic and useless. And then, of course, the maximum HP is mandatory. Here I have 11,000 hit points. If that's not good for you, you can just slot the extra HP module on the dangerous ambush. I do a lot of my stuff on Twitch. I did this on Twitch. I did a lot of testing. If you're interested in chiming in and putting your 2 cents in, I highly recommend you drop in on one of my lives and ask me a question or make a recommendation, because us formulating builds together is going to be how we just build the best builds. Y'all have a sick day. Catch me on Twitch if you want to. It's in the link in the description. Peace out.